Concludes questions. Order. That concludes questions for oral answer. I have received a letter from Honourable Damien O'Connor seeking to debate under Standing Order 386 the cessation of the importation of New Zealand sheep and beef meat into China as a result of actions by the Ministry of Primary Industries and the failure to adequately respond to these issues. This is a particular case of recent occurrence involving ministerial responsibility. However, the applications for urgent debate are required to be lodged at least 1 hour before the House sits. The member did not meet the deadline with this application. However, in any event, the House will today continue with the budget debate. This provides another means of the House discussing the matter. In these circumstances, there is no justification for setting aside the business of the House. The application is therefore declined. I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.
Appropriation 2013-14 Estimates Bill, adjourned debate on the second reading and the amendment proposed thereto.
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Speaker, I'm not surprised that Damien O'Connor got that letter to you in late. He probably had another one in his drawer asking not to have a debate and couldn't work out which one he should send in. Mr Speaker, I rise to speak in favour of the budget delivered by the Honourable Bill English and against the amendment moved by the Leader of the Opposition. Mr Speaker, this was a budget that has seen the government being able to project surplus in the coming year. And, Mr Speaker, I want to put on record my congratulations to the Honourable Bill English, who has stuck to the course but has shown throughout the last 4 years considerable compassion for New Zealanders where there are needs, and most particularly, sir, that has been shown in the situation around Christchurch. This budget committed a further $2 billion in extra funding to the recovery effort in Christchurch, bringing the government's contribution to that recovery to something around about the $15 billion mark. The total recovery from all sources will now be in excess of $40 billion, a very large undertaking by any manner of means, Mr Speaker. The government remains very committed to ensuring that we do get a good recovery result in Christchurch, and I want to just run through with the House not only some of the things that we have committed funding to, but also some of the issues that we have previously committed funding to. So first, in this budget, there is $900 million of new capital funding, which will go to Christchurch hospitals and their redevelopment. Mr Speaker, this is the biggest single hospital development in New Zealand's history, and very appropriately being led by the Canterbury District Health Board, and sir, they are doing a great job in making sure that this new facility comes together extremely well. And I want to thank Mr Tony Ryle, the Honourable Tony Ryle, for his considerable efforts in making sure that this funding was available. Further, sir, there is a capital commitment to the Justice and Emergency Precinct, and further commitments also to tertiary education. And once again, sir, the hallmark of the legislation that we passed for recovery in Canterbury is that each minister in their own ministry has responsibility to contribute to that recovery. It's made, sir, my job as the overall minister responsible so much easier, and I do want to thank the ministers for the work that they continue to do. Sir, we've also put money in this budget into making sure that the anchor projects that were in the CBD plan produced last year do get underway. And Mr Speaker, these are very big civic assets that add to the amenity of any city. And the opportunity here is for Christchurch to have some very, very good buildings that will be strong, that will last and pass the test of time and add value to our community. In addition, sir, we've put up money for the development of the Avon River precinct. People will be familiar that the Avon River wanders through the centre of Christchurch. We want the banks of that river to become far more accessible to people in Christchurch and to visitors to our city, and the government has put up a fund of some $96 million to make that happen over the coming years. And as private sector investors begin to build buildings. And I want to acknowledge Anthony Goff for getting first out of the blocks with the proposals he announced yesterday. There will be complementary design between those buildings and those riverbanks to ensure that we get the most splendid results possible. Mr Speaker, the EQC comes under a great deal of criticism, and we have funded them beyond the disaster fund so that they can continue with the obligations that they now pick up in Christchurch. So far, sir, they've repaired over 38,000 homes. That's a very large number, albeit that it's taken a couple of years to do that. But what it does let us get to is a point where by the end of the year we'd expect that number to be 50,000, and by the end of 2015 the entire repair job going to the Fletcher Repair Office, Recovery Office being completed. Mr Speaker, private insurers have got a role to play. They need to step up and do a lot more than they appear to be doing at the present time. Mr Speaker, one of the things that we did early on was put up $1.7 billion to help families out of damaged homes in the worst affected areas of Christchurch. These are areas essentially where it's just so difficult to rebuild. It was much more desirable for people to make a difficult choice, a very difficult choice, but to accept one of the government offers and to move on. And I'm pleased, sir, that nearly 6,700 people, or households I should say, have accepted those offers and are moving on. And we saw last Friday night, sir, on the Campbell Live television program, the happy faces of people who have been able to benefit from that program by in fact relocating into new or second purchased houses, Mr Speaker, in far stronger areas. It was a little change from the normal John Campbell program. He is the I think, appointed campaign manager for the Labour Party in Christchurch. That's disappointing that he does take that particular role, because I don't think that he actually represents the city terribly well with some of the stories that he does put out there. And I would just encourage him to keep looking, not too hard, because you don't have to, sir, to find some of the very good stories that exist for people in Canterbury. We are coming into a local body election this year, sir, and that does create some worries. And I would simply say to anybody who is thinking of standing for the council or taking a major leadership role that they might be elected to, have a look at the finances. Have a look at the finances, and don't be deceived by what you're being told, sir, by the people who are presenting those figures. Because, sir, that is a council that has significant challenges ahead of it. And some of the silly rhetoric that we're getting out of potential candidates is not going to help people in Christchurch move forward. We need to do that in a sensible fashion, and I'm pleased, sir, that the government is sticking by Canterbury and ensuring that things do move. It's noteworthy, sir, that the economy in Canterbury last year grew by 5.6% compared to the rest of New Zealand at 2.2%. We've got very good growth statistics with a 6.8% rise in employment and unemployment sitting at 4.3%. So some very, very good fundamentals there. Essentially, local people responding to the challenge that is in front of them and getting on with putting the city back together. I've got huge admiration for them. And, sir, I do want to make it clear that it's the Prime Minister's commitment, the Deputy Prime Minister's commitment, and the commitment of the whole Cabinet and National Caucus, as well as a great deal of the membership of this House, that sits behind the work that they do in a most complementary fashion. Mr Speaker, I do think, though, it's worth looking at the public reaction to the budget as a whole, which has been, by and large, very, very positive. It's interesting I mentioned John Campbell before. I now sadly have to mention Paddy Gower, who had a very interesting take on some polling figures that were produced last week, saying it was the Labour Party hoax over the electricity proposals that had got them up in the polls. I'll simply say this, sir. The National Government came in 2008. We had at that time a 72% rise in the retail power price in just 8 years. We'd had 4 crises in the electricity industry through that time where people were asked to save. and the power companies profited all the way through that, sir. We said there's something wrong here. So the first thing we did is get rid of the thermal ban. The second thing we did was embark on electricity market reform. And when those reforms kicked in 2010, the Labor Party said they'll never work, they'll cause problems. Well, sir, power increases have been less than half the rate of the Labor Party. And secondly, sir, in the last 3 years of the Labor government, the average amount of electricity generated from renewable sources was just 65%. Since 2010, sir, the average electricity generated from renewable sources has sat at 74%, a massive increase. And what it means is that when power companies are faced with some opportunities to do things in a sensible way, they will choose to do it. And, sir, the point that I make is that under all of this, smoke and mirrors from the Labor Party, there is the suggestion there'll be a $300 or $400 a year saving from electricity, which frankly cannot be proven, cannot be sustained as an argument. But then, of course, climate change charges that will put $500 to $600 on the power bills or the costs of every household. Sir, it's no surprise that the alternative to the budget, the excellent budget brought down by Bill English, has fallen on its face with the public. Thank you.
Point of order. Is this a 10-minute call?
10 minutes. I'll give a call at 2 minutes to go. The Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again today we had another typical announcement from the Prime Minister.